Today, we're diving into probably one of the most intense periods anyone goes through becoming a parent, that whole perinatal and postpartum time.
Right. It's a pregnancy all the way through that first year after birth. And yeah, people focus on the joy, which is there, of course.
Of course.
But it's also just a time of profound vulnerability. I mean, chronic stress, huge psychological shifts. But what's fascinating and what we'll dig into is that it's also this unique window, an opportunity for real psychological growth, long term.
So not just surviving it, but actually growing through it.
Precisely. Because new parents, I mean, no matter how ready you think you are, you're hit with this exhaustion, hormones all over the place. You need tools, real evidence-based tools.
And that's our mission today, right? To cut through all the, well, sometimes fluffy advice out there and pull out the strategies that actually work, the ones backed by science.
We're focusing on three big ones that are kind of interconnected. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, mindfulness practices,
Right.
and self-compassion. These are the things that studies show really help manage mood issues, anxiety, that pervasive stress that just comes with the territory.
And we're basing this on solid ground, aren't we?
Absolutely. We're talking systematic reviews, meta-analyses, pulling together lots of randomized controlled trials, the gold standard, really. Plus, deep dives into the neurobiology, all specifically looking at new and expecting parents.
Okay, and here's the really exciting part, I think. If you're listening and thinking, oh, this is just about coping, feeling a bit better, well, it's way more than that.
Much more.
The biggest takeaway from all this research is that these aren't just like mental tricks. They actually create measurable physical changes in your brain, in your nervous system.
Structural changes.
Yeah, and that leads to better mental and physical health long term. Not just for the parent, but, and this is wild for the child too.
It's fundamental neurological rewiring we're talking about. It really is that powerful.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where should we start? Maybe with understanding just how challenging this period really is.
Yeah, let's set the scene. So when we talk perinatal, it's this whole arc. Pregnancy, birth, that first year, it's a massive physiological and psychological overhaul.
It's not just a few weeks of feeling a bit off.
No, definitely not. We have to get past that old idea of just the baby blues. You've got huge hormonal shifts happening, constant high stress, often feeling really isolated.
Isolation's a big one.
Huge. And the sleep thing, it's not just being tired, it's chronic, fragmented, poor quality sleep. It all combines, It creates this perfect storm that can genuinely trigger serious mental health conditions.
So what are the main conditions we see popping up in the research?
The two big ones that get documented most are postpartum depression, PPD, and postpartum anxiety, PPA.
Let's talk PPD first. The numbers are pretty shocking, aren't they?
They really are. Depending on how it's screened, it affects somewhere between 7% and maybe up to 20% of women in that first year postpartum.
1 in 5, potentially.
Yeah. And the symptoms. It's relentless, persistent sadness, just a low mood you can't shake, overwhelming fatigue way beyond normal tiredness.
Right.
Trouble concentrating, feeling incredibly guilty, hopeless, sometimes worthless. And there's this cycle, too. Research clearly shows poor sleep doesn't just make you tired, it strongly predicts worse depression and anxiety symptoms 6 months down the line.
So the physical exhaustion directly fuels the mental health struggles. You can't separate them.
You really can't. It's all interconnected.
Okay, and then there's PPA, postpartum anxiety.
Yeah.
This one sometimes gets missed, right? Like it's just normal worry.
Exactly. It often flies under the radar, but it's just as common, affecting 15% to 20% of women, and it feels very different from typical new parent nervousness.
So
we're talking actual panic attacks sometimes. Just overwhelming, excessive worry that feels impossible to control. Intense irritability, which can really strain relationships. And for many, the hardest part is the obsessive thoughts. These intrusive, often scary what-if scenarios about the baby's safety. It's not just concern, it's this mental loop they feel trapped in, stuck in high alert.
that sounds exhausting. And it obviously doesn't just affect the mother, does it? It ripples outward.
Absolutely. The impact on the whole family unit is profound. Beyond the mother's own struggles with self-esteem, focus, and bonding with the baby.
Which are huge in themselves.
Right. But untreated maternal mental health problems can actually affect the infant's health and development. Studies link it to things like low birth weight, preeclampsia, issues with newborn development. It sets a tough course right from the start.
It really underscores why getting help is so critical. It's a public health issue, not just a personal one.
Totally.
Now, something crucial, you mentioned fathers. We absolutely have to talk about paternal mental health. It's not just a mom thing.
Not at all. That's a huge misconception. The data is clear. About 1 in 10 fathers experience depression or anxiety during this time.
1 in 10. And you said that's higher than usual rates for men.
Yeah, it's actually about twice the general global estimate for clinical depression in men. It's a significant issue, often overlooked.
And does it look the same in dads?
Often no. And that's part of why it gets missed. While women might report sadness or crying, men are more likely to report physical symptoms.
Like what?
Chronic fatigue, headaches they can't explain, feeling restless or agitated.
So the body kind of takes the hit or shows the strain.
Exactly. Or it comes out in behavior. Instead of sadness, maybe it's increased irritability, anger, even aggression. Or withdrawal, pulling back, working more, avoiding family time.
A coping mechanism that isolates them further.
Precisely. And interestingly, paternal depression often peaks a bit later than maternal, maybe around 3 to 6 months postpartum.
What are the big risk factors for dads? Is it just the stress?
Stress is huge, yes.
Yeah.
Adapting to this new identity, maybe lack of support specifically for fathers, but the single biggest risk factor the research points to, maternal depression.
Wow. So if the mom is struggling, the dad's risk goes way up.
Way up. It creates this incredibly difficult dynamic. Plus, many dads report feeling kind of secondary, excluded, unnecessary, especially around the birth and early days. That feeling can feed into the withdrawal.
Okay, so we've got a massive need here. Up to 1 in 5 mothers, 1 in 10 fathers struggling significantly.
Okay.
This leads us to the solutions and the challenges there. You mentioned medication.
Right. Pharmacotherapy is an option, of course, but many new mothers, understandably, are very hesitant, especially if they're breastfeeding. They worry about medication exposure for the baby.
That makes total sense.
It does, and that clinical reality is exactly why these psychosocial interventions, the mind-based tools like CBT and mindfulness, become so vital. They aren't just add-ons, they're often recommended as first-line options because they offer real relief without those medication concerns.
Okay, let's dig into the first big tool, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. This isn't just venting, is it? It's quite structured.
Very structured. It's a practical, often short-term therapy. The core idea is looking at the links between your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions or behaviors.
How you think affects how you feel affects what you do.
Exactly. And crucially, it's focused on the present. What's happening right now, what patterns are active, and how can we shift them? It's less about digging deep into the past.
And the goal for new parents using CBT?
It's actually pretty straightforward, though powerful. You learn to catch those unhelpful, often really harsh automatic thoughts that pop up.
Like, I'm doing this all wrong.
Yes, exactly that kind of thought. Once you can recognize it, label it, and then learn to consciously shift it, you gain enormous power over how you feel and how you function, especially under that intense pressure. It gives you real-world strategies for survival mode.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, the brain connection. You said these aren't just mental tricks, they change the brain. How does CBT do that?
Right. So think about what happens in the brain with postpartum mood disorders. There's often this imbalance. Your brain's alarm center, the amygdala.
The smoke detector.
Yeah, the smoke detector. It becomes hyperreactive. It's constantly firing off warnings, seeing danger everywhere, even when it's not really there. Overly sensitive.
Okay.
At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, the part that handles reflection, problem solving, regulation, that part becomes underactive.
So the alarm is screaming, and the part that's supposed to assess the situation and calm things down is offline.
Pretty much. That's why it's so hard to stop those spiraling negative thoughts when you're in the thick of it. Your regulatory system is literally out of whack.
So how does CBT fix that?
Think of CBT as like strength training for your prefrontal cortex. Every time you consciously identify one of those negative automatic thoughts like, the baby's crying, I must be a terrible mother, and you actively challenge it, replace it with a more balanced thought.
Like, babies cry doesn't mean I'm failing.
Exactly. Each time you do that, you are physically strengthening the neural pathways linked to emotional regulation. You're building connections that help re-engage that prefrontal cortex.
You're literally rewiring your response.
You are. Repetition by repetition. Over time, this helps calm down the overactive amygdala. You become less reactive, more flexible in your thinking. And brain imaging studies actually show the CBT practice can measurably decrease amygdala activity and increase connectivity in the prefrontal cortex.
That's incredible. It's building resilience from the inside out.
It's not just coping, it's building a better engine for handling stress.
Okay, so what are the specific CBT techniques that work best for exhausted new parents? What's practical?
Well, the absolute foundation is thought tracking and cognitive restructuring. New parents, maybe especially moms, are often drowning in self-criticism. That inner critic just runs wild when you're sleep deprived.
Oh yeah, no filter left.
None. So CBT teaches you to catch those harsh thoughts. Treat them like a hypothesis, not a fact.
Okay, test the thought.
Test it. Look for the actual evidence. Evidence for, I'm a bad mother because I snapped at my partner. Okay, maybe that happened. But what's the evidence against it? I got up 5 times last night, I fed the baby, I kept everyone safe, I'm exhausted, not inherently bad.
So you reframe it. You move from harsh judgment to a more realistic, maybe even compassionate assessment.
Exactly. It's about finding that balanced response.
But I mean, finding the mental energy to do that when you're running on empty, that sounds tough in itself. Where do you even start?
That's a really important point, and that's where the second technique, behavioral activation, is so crucial. When you're depressed or really anxious, the urge is to withdraw, do nothing, hide.
Yeah, pull the covers over your head.
Right, which just makes you feel worse. Behavioral activation is about gently, deliberately adding back small, manageable, maybe even slightly enjoyable or meaningful activities.
Super small things.
Tiny things, not clean the whole house. Maybe just step outside for 5 minutes. Or text one friend back. Or take a shower without feeling guilty about it.
Little wins.
Little wins that break the inertia. You target the behavior first, hoping the mood follows. You don't wait to feel motivated because, honestly, that might not happen for a while. It's about manageable progress, not perfection. Super important for new parents.
Makes sense. What else? You mentioned perfectionism.
Ah, yes. Challenging all or nothing thinking. Parenthood is prime territory for this. If I can't do it perfectly, I'm a total failure. If the house isn't spotless, I'm incompetent.
Black and white thinking.
Exactly. CBT helps you spot those extremes and find the gray area. Like, okay, maybe I only managed 70% today, but given I have a newborn, 70% is actually amazing. It relieves so much pressure, allows for self-forgiveness.
Yeah, the pressure is immense. And finally, you mentioned anxiety management.
Right. CBT folds in techniques to manage the physical side of anxiety. The racing heart, the tight chest, the shallow breathing, things like grounding exercises, paced breathing, which actually leads us perfectly into our next set of tools.
Yeah, so if CBT helps you work with the content of your thoughts, mindfulness-based practices, or MBPs, are more about managing the process of thinking itself.
Okay, how so? What's the core idea of mindfulness?
Basically, it's about paying attention, on purpose, to the present moment, what's happening right now, inside you and around you, and crucially, doing it without judgment.
Sounds simple, but it's really not, is it? Quieting that inner chatter.
It takes practice. The aim is to stop getting constantly yanked away by regrets about the past or worries about the future, and just be here.
And like CBT, this isn't just a nice idea. It has real effects on the brain, right?
Profound effects. Regular mindfulness practice actually changes brain structure and function. One key thing it does is quiet down activity in something called the default mode network, the DMN.
The DMM, what does that do? It's the network that's active when your mind is wandering, lost in thought, ruminating, thinking about yourself, worrying about the future, regretting the past.
Ah, so it's where anxiety and depression hang out.
Pretty much. It's the mind-wandering network. Mindfulness helps dial that down, helps you unhook from the noise, and just anchor in your senses right here, right now.
And you can actually see changes on brain scans.
Yes. Studies tracking people doing programs like mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, found increases in density, actual thickening in key brain areas.
Which areas?
The hippocampus, which is vital for learning, memory, and emotional regulation, and parts of the prefrontal cortex involved in that higher level thinking and emotional control we talked about with CBT.
So you're strengthening the brain's regulation machinery.
Literally. And maybe the most striking finding. Remember the amygdala, the fear center?
The overactive smoke detector.
In regular mindfulness practitioners, studies show the amygdala actually decreases in gray matter density. It can get physically smaller, less reactive.
Wow, so the alarm system itself becomes less twitchy. That would make a huge difference for a new parent.
Huge. Less likely to jump into panic mode over every little thing. The whole nervous system becomes calmer, more resilient. Plus, long-term meditators tend to maintain more gray matter as they age potentially sharper brains for longer.
Okay, so the brain science is compelling. What about the results for new parents specifically? Using programs like MBSR or MBCT, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy?
Or MBCP, mindfulness-based childbirth and parenting. The clinical data is really strong. Meta-analyses consistently show these mindfulness interventions, or MBIs, significantly reduce depression, anxiety, and stress levels during pregnancy and postpartum.
Lower PPD scores compared to standard care.
Significantly lower, yes.
Yep.
And it helps buffer against high stress, too. Like, one study showed MBSR reduced stress, anxiety, and fear of childbirth, even in pregnant women who had COVID-19 during the pandemic. It provides this kind of psychological insulation.
And it's not just about reducing the negative stuff, right? It builds positive things too.
Definitely. MBCT, for example, improves emotional regulation skills and general psychological well-being. And really importantly, MBPs boost things like self-compassion.
Which we'll come back to.
Yes. And parental self-efficacy, that feeling of confidence in your parenting. This helps parents become more attuned, more sensitive to their baby's cues. They can see the baby is upset without immediately thinking, I'm failing. It improves that crucial parent-infant connection.
That's huge for bonding.
Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned some surprising physical benefits. I usually think of mindfulness as purely mental.
Right. But the research links MBPs to actual physical birth outcomes, too.
Like what?
Like higher rates of normal vaginal births. Also, reports of lessened pain during labor and less need for pain medication or epidurals.
How does that work?
It seems these practices help the parent stay present with the sensations, even intense ones, rather than fighting them or getting lost in fear. It empowers them to work with their body. And even during pregnancy, MBPs have been shown to enhance maternal-fetal attachment, that early bonding.
So it really is a holistic tool. Mind and body, parent and baby.
Absolutely. Powerful across the board for this phase of life. Okay, so we've got CBT for the thought content, mindfulness for the thought process. Now let's talk about the third key piece, self-compassion. This is kind of the secret sauce that makes the other two work even better. And then we'll get into those immediate, in-the-moment crisis tools.
Self-compassion. People sometimes think it's just being soft on yourself or self-pity, but it's more rigorous than that, isn't it?
Much more. It has three core components that have to work together. First, self-kindness. Treating yourself with warmth and understanding when you mess up or feel inadequate, instead of harsh judgment.
Like you treat a good friend.
Exactly. Second, common humanity. Recognizing that struggling, feeling overwhelmed, making mistakes, that's part of being human. Especially as a new parent, you're not alone in feeling this way. It connects you to others rather than isolating you in shame.
So it counters that feeling of, I'm the only one failing.
Precisely. And third is mindfulness. Not the formal meditation necessarily, but holding your difficult feelings, the exhaustion, the frustration, in balanced awareness. Acknowledging them without getting totally swept away by them or trying to pretend they're not there.
And low self-compassion. And that's like to shame, right?
Yeah.
Especially maybe after a difficult birth.
Definitely. That feeling of, I should have handled it better, or my body failed. Intense shame and self-criticism can really spike, and low self-compassion makes it much harder to cope. It can even worsen post-traumatic stress symptoms.
Is there a therapy focused specifically on this?
Yes, compassion-focused therapy, or CFT. It directly targets that toxic self-criticism and shame by actively cultivating compassion for yourself and from yourself. It worked on activating the brain's soothing system, the affiliation system, to counteract the threat system.
And does it work? Can we measure the impact of being kinder to yourself?
We can. There was a great pilot study using online self-compassion resources for moms with infants. The results were clear.
What did they find?
Participants showed significant increases in self-compassion, as you'd expect, but also significant decreases in overall post-traumatic stress symptoms, especially those intrusive thoughts and hyperarousal after difficult births. And interestingly, they also reported feeling more satisfied with breastfeeding.
Wow, so less self-criticism maybe help them relax into it or feel more confident.
That seems to be the implication. Reducing that internal pressure had tangible benefits.
That's really powerful. Okay, so self-compassion is the foundation. But what about when you're right in the middle of a panic spiral? 3 a.m., baby screaming, you feel like you're losing it. You need something now.
Exactly. That's where grounding techniques come in. They're like immediate circuit breakers. They pull your mind out of that anxious spinning or sometimes frozen detached state and back into the present moment, into your body.
Give us some examples. What can someone actually do?
We can group them into 3 types. First, physical and sensory techniques. These use your body and senses to interrupt the anxiety.
Things you can do quickly, even holding a baby.
Yes. Splashing cold water on your face is a classic. The shock resets your system. Holding ice works similarly.
Okay.
If you're sitting or standing, really feel your feet on the floor. Notice the pressure. Wiggle your toes. Rub your hands together and focus on the friction or the warmth. Anything that forces your attention onto a physical sensation right now, and always deep, slow breathing hand on your belly, feeling it rise and fall. That directly tells your nervous system to calm down.
Okay, physical sensory. What's next?
Mental techniques. These use your thinking brain to distract from the anxiety loop. Give it a different job to do.
Like counting sheep, but more effective.
Sort of. Try naming things around you with intense detail. Not just blue cup, but that's a cerulean blue mug with a slight chick on the rim. Requires focus.
Right.
Counting backward from 100 by 7s is a good one, just hard enough to need concentration. Or mentally recite lyrics to a complex song, or a poem you know well. Anything that occupies the part of your brain that's fueling the worry.
Got it. Distraction with a task. And the third type?
Soothing techniques. These tap into feelings of comfort and safety.
How do you do that when you feel awful?
You can picture the face of someone you love and trust, someone who makes you feel safe. Really bring their image or voice to mind. Or imagine a favorite place, the beach, a forest focusing on the sights, sounds, smells. Let your body feel the calm of that place.
Yep.
Or even just touching something soft, a blanket, a pet, can trigger that soothing response.
So physical, mental, soothing. Practical tools. And you mentioned before, these aren't just psychological tricks. There's objective proof they work. You mentioned HRV.
Yes, heart rate variability. It's a fantastic objective measure of your nervous system's state. Basically, it measures the tiny variations in time between each heartbeat.
And what does that tell us?
Higher variability, more fluctuation between beats is generally good. It reflects a healthy balance between your sympathetic nervous system, the gas pedal or fight or flight,
Right.
and your parasympathetic system, the brake or rest and digest. Higher HRV means your system is flexible, resilient, able to shift gears easily between stress and calm.
And grounding techniques affect HRV.
They do. A study looked at this in clinicians, a stress group. They found that grounding, deep breathing, and especially the body scan exercise all produced statistically significant positive changes in HRV.
What kind of changes?
Increased markers of parasympathetic activity, the brake system kicking in, more relaxation, and decreased markers of sympathetic stress. The body scans seem particularly powerful. They even visualized it with something called Poincaré plots.
Okay, explain the plots. That sounds interesting.
So on these plots, a stressed state, high sympathetic drive, low variability often looks like a narrow, elongated shape. They called it a torpedo shape, stuck in stress mode.
Right. Rigid.
Exactly. But after doing something like a body scan, the plot often shifted to a broader, more spread out fan shape. That indicates increased variability, more parasympathetic influence, the system becoming more flexible, more resilient. You can literally see the nervous system shifting from threat to safety.
That's amazing visual proof. Okay, so these techniques work. How much practice is needed? Especially for parents who have zero time. Is 30 minutes of meditation a day realistic?
That's the million-dollar question. While some research aiming to reduce PPD suggests 30 minutes of daily formal meditation, the synthesis of findings points towards consistency and duration of the program. For the best impact on PPD-PPA, interventions lasting around 4 weeks seem key.
Okay, a month-long commitment.
Right, with sessions ideally lasting less than 60 minutes. And aiming for practice around 3 times per week seems optimal for seeing benefits without it feeling overwhelming. The key is finding ways to integrate short, frequent practices like those 1-minute grounding techniques scattered through the day, rather than aiming for one long, perfect session that never happens. Consistency over quantity. Which brings us to accessibility. How do parents actually get these tools? Getting to an in-person appointment with a newborn, it's a huge barrier.
Almost impossible sometimes. Childcare, timing, just getting out the door.
Exactly. So it's a really significant finding that these mindfulness interventions and CBT principles too are very often delivered effectively online through websites, self-help programs, mobile apps. Things like WeChat have been used successfully. It allows for that daily, flexible access.
And does it work as well as face-to-face?
The feasibility studies are really encouraging. They consistently show that online and mobile app versions can produce similar positive outcomes to traditional in-person therapy.
That's huge. Game-changing, really.
It is. The pandemic obviously accelerated the shift to telepsychiatry, but it proved the model works. It's often more cost-effective, definitely more feasible for parents stuck at home. It removes major barriers.
So more people can access help, get stable.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something earlier that really struck me. The impact goes beyond the parent, the two-generation impact.
Ah, yes. This is probably the most profound finding of all. The benefits of the parent learning these skills literally extend to the infant's developing physiology.
You're talking about changing how the baby's stress system develops.
Exactly. There was a landmark study, I think it was UCSF, that followed babies whose mothers did a prenatal mindfulness program. Compared to a control group, these infants showed a measurably healthier stress response when they were tested at 6 months old.
Okay, what does a healthier stress response actually look like in an infant? How do they measure that?
They look at things like cardiovascular recovery. So they introduce a very mild, safe stressor, like the mom holds a neutral expression for a moment. The baby's heart rate naturally goes up in response. That's normal.
Right.
But the babies whose moms had the mindfulness training, their heart rates returned to baseline much faster after the stressor was removed. They recovered more quickly.
It bounced back?
They bounced back quicker, and they also showed more self-soothing behaviors like sucking their thumb, looking away calmly. They seemed to have a better innate ability to regulate themselves.
And that ability to recover quickly from stress, that's considered a really important marker for long-term health, isn't it?
It absolutely is. That pattern, a strong but appropriate reaction, followed by a fast, efficient recovery, is linked to better outcomes down the road. Potentially lower risk for things like high blood pressure, chronic inflammation, maybe even mental health issues later in life.
Wow. So by learning these skills herself, the mother is potentially helping to wire her child's nervous system for resilience.
That's what the evidence suggests. It's an incredible intergenerational effect.
So tying this all together, what's the big message for someone listening, maybe someone expecting, or in those early months?
I think the message is that the evidence is really compelling. Using tools like mindfulness and CBT, ideally starting early in the perinatal period, isn't just about symptom relief, though it does that very effectively.
It's more foundational.
It's foundational. It provides structure when everything feels chaotic. It builds confidence. And critically, it offers skills that last a lifetime. Learning to manage your mind and your stress during this incredibly intense time, it reduces the risk of relapse later, yes, but it also sets you up to handle future challenges with more stability. That intense pressure cooker of new parenthood actually becomes this unlikely training ground for lifelong resilience. #tag outro.
So if we boil it down after this deep dive, we've got these 3 core pathways emerging from the evidence. There's CBT, giving you that structure to challenge and reframe those really tough thoughts.
Right, interrupting the negative loops.
Then there's mindfulness, training your attention to stay in the present, which we now know physically calms down that fear center in the brain, the amygdala.
Anchoring you in the now, reducing reactivity.
And underpinning it all, self-compassion, learning to treat yourself with kindness instead of criticism, recognizing your struggles are shared. That's the antidote to shame.
Absolutely essential, that warmth towards yourself.
And crucially, this isn't just about feeling better subjectively. We have objective proof, those HRV changes. The shift from the stress torpedo to the resilient fan shape, showing these practices physically change how your nervous system responds to pressure.
The physiological shifts are real and measurable.
We usually talk about the perinatal time as just incredibly hard, vulnerable, a time of loss of self, maybe.
And it is hard, undeniably. But what these studies illuminate is that it's also this unique, concentrated window for incredible psychological growth, a period of accelerated learning, almost.
Learning through fire, maybe?
Perhaps. But the skills you're forced to cultivate, being kind to yourself when you feel like you're failing, staying present when everything's chaotic, learning to just be with discomfort without needing it to immediately go away. These aren't just mom skills or dad skills.
They're life skills.
They are fundamental life skills for navigating anything that comes next. Maybe the ultimate resilience, as the mindfulness teachers often say, is realizing that discomfort itself isn't the real problem. The problem is how much we fight against it, how attached we are to the idea that things should always feel comfortable. Learning to sit with the discomfort. That's a superpower.
A powerful thought to end on. We really hope this information is helpful and empowering.
Look out for new updates.